we had a couple of news, right? And one of the biggest economic news that happened this week was that the government is looking towards increasing the prices of diesel, right? So I guess in this episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about what has been happening, right? And what can we do, right? So from the top, the prices of diesel quite recently increased, right? And this is on the back of number one, there was a removal for subsidy for fuel. Number two, which is the diesel. Number two, there's a removal for subsidy for our water, our electric. And the third is that right now, even some food items, the price ceiling has been removed. So more and more, we can see that inflation is actually one of the things which is impacting our daily lifestyle lah. So I think I'm going to talk about, or I've been asked this particular question, what's the one best advice or what's the one best thing we can do if there's an inflation, right? And what's the one best thing that we can do if we cannot save at all, right? And my answer to this is just one particular mindset, which is having a minimalistic mindset, right? And let me explain this lah. So I guess in my journey towards trying to retire much earlier in my life, right, I used to think that one of the best ways for us to retire early, right, or get out the rat race is to start earning more money, right? And I used to, and this was the thought that a lot of fresh grads got lah, they wanted to, back when I was in my 20s lah, all of us wanted to study our MBA, all of us wanted to study our CFA, right? And all of us wanted to study our CPA, right? So I was an accountant when I first graduated. So CPA is the Certified Public Accounting paper. And then when I eventually became an analyst, it was a CFA, which is a Certified Financial Analyst paper, right? And back then it was one paper after the next paper after the next paper. And a lot of me and my friends we were trying to figure out ways to actually increase our salary, especially when we were in our 20s and our 30s now, right? At that point in time, we just wanted to read as much books, we wanted to improve ourselves, we wanted to invest in ourselves, and we wanted to level up. So back then, I used to think that one of the best ways to actually get financial freedom was to make sure that we earn more, right? So, back when I was in my 20s assuming if the salary was about 1,500, assuming, right? And we spent about 1,200, right? So in my mind, I thought to myself, if I were to earn maybe 3,000, right? And if my spending was 1,200, I get to save 1,008, right? And if I continue saving 1,008 every month until I retire, for me that was a key of retirement, right? So what actually helped change my mind was this lah. So one day I was talking to my fund manager, right? And this lady was actually, I'm sure she would have earned double or triple of what I was earning lah, basically, right? And it was one evening when I was working and we were trying to rush for paper. And I still remembered she telling me one thing. She said, oh man, if she had enough money, she would also retire. And in my head, when I was a fresh grad, I was like, she's earning much more than I am. How come she's telling me things like this, right? And it dawned into me, it's not how much you make that will enable your success in towards retirement. Hey, thanks for the likes. Rather, it's how much you save, right? So with this lady, I remembered looking at my fund manager, I remembered looking at her lifestyle, right? So even though she earned a lot more, but her toys were a lot more expensive, right? I remember there was one bonus. She actually upgraded her car and she got a new Beetle. I don't know whether you guys remember those Beetles, right? Those rounded cars, right? She got herself a new Beetle. And then on top of that, she bought herself a nice house. And then even her kids, she sent for private education, right? So if I were to give an analogy, for every 1 ringgit she earns, she probably spends 79 cents lah, basically. So whatever she earns is whatever she spends. So whatever she earns is whatever she spends. So therefore, should she lose a job lah, or there's no payment for her, right? She will have to find a job within the next 2 or 3 months because she does not save that much of money, right? So again, as I was saying, one of the keys towards financial independence, as I mentioned, was minimalism, right? And back in the day, I used to think that earning more was one of the keys, but that is half a key towards retiring early, lah, right? Earning more, right? I think the other half of the key is to start saving more, right? So, and I gave you a story of my fund manager. She was earning maybe double or triple of what I used to earn. And true, right? So, and I had another friend also. Hey, Petro Trading, how are you, my friend? So, and I had another friend, right? She was a high flyer, tau. She is a high flyer. And she got promoted every once a year. Every once a year she got promoted. And I still remember even in my, when we're in our 20s and 30s, right? We want to learn from other people, right? And we want to find ourselves a mentor. So and I wanted to see how she actually got promoted very quickly. And in my head, I thought she would also retire much quickly. Very true, Alhamdulillah. Yeah, and that's why I have financial literacy classes, and I hope with all of this financial literacy talk, right, you guys would level up in terms of your money management, right? So anyway, with this girl also, I remembered every year she got promoted, right? And I still remembered, I was like, wow, I think maybe this is the key towards retiring early, right? And I still remember talking to her. I said, what's the saving and whatnot? And to my mind, she did not save at all. She did not save at all. In fact, every time she got a bonus, she'll do things like she will travel to Europe, right? She will go to places like Venice, and then she'll bring her sister also to Italy. And then there was one year she got a super bonus. She bought her whole family iPhones and whatnot. I was like, whoa. And the energy which I like to give over here is for every 1 ringgit she earns, she probably spend 1 ringgit 10 cents. So in our heads, I say, how is it possible if this person earns 1 ringgit, but this person spends 1 ringgit 10 cents? Basically, she actually lives off credit. So sometimes when she travels quite a fair bit, what happens is she has some form of debt, lah, basically, right? And she will wait until the next year's bonus to pay off the current year's debt, right? So again, as I mentioned, earning more is not necessarily the key for us to retire, right? But earning more actually helps us, right? So the second key towards retiring early is this, right? Living below our means, right? This one was really unassuming. I still remembered actually talking to one of my friend. This guy is a Bangladeshi, lah, right? And he was helping me paint my house, right? One of my house. And then I was talking to him one day. I said, how much does he earn? He does not earn that much, maybe about 4 or 5K, right? But what it is like his full-time job, he earns about 4 or 5K. And then during the weekends, he will do odd jobs here and there. So even with the odd jobs, he will maybe make a couple of hundreds and sometimes 1 or 2,000 lah, basically, right? So he was telling me, he said that, and for every $1 he makes, he only spends maybe 30 cents and 70 cents he keeps. So for the 5,000 ringgit salary, right, he probably keeps about 3,000 of his salary. And the rest, he actually lives very minimalistic, right? And there was this one story which I saw on TikTok, which actually blew my mind. This is a Pak Gat, which is a Bangladeshi guy, right? And this guy was asking his Pak Gat, this guy every time will makan nasi, kicap, and a bit of ikan bilis sahaja, tau. And then this guy was asking, he says, hey, how much you have saved in Bangladesh, right? I think this guy has about 800,000. All right, it's quite a high number lah. When if I'm not mistaken, it's about 800,000 lah. But I know it's 6 digits lah. But basically, what we can learn over here is this lah. It's not how much we earn, is how much we save, right? But that being said, in this current economic situation, right, when inflation is moving up quite significantly lah. As I mentioned, if we look at prices of rice, right, even rice, last time we can get local rice for 26 ringgit. Right now it's about 44 ringgit for imported rice. So therefore, the prices of there's an inflation over there. And then on top of that, as I mentioned, our electricity bills getting more expensive and our water bills getting more expensive. In fact, I talked to some students this afternoon, right? And a lot of them work in a government-linked company, right? And these are all professionals. And I asked them this particular question. Has it been easy for them to save? Basically, they told me it's difficult for them to save. So I think one of the most actionable item we can do is this one thing. And this is a gem, right? And I'm going to share with you guys this. If you guys can save 10 ringgit per day, right? If you guys can save 10 ringgit per day, have a tabung right beside the door. And every time before you leave the house, you put 10 ringgit, 10 ringgit, 10 ringgit, right? And what will happen is that if you save this 10 ringgit, in 30 days, you will get 300 ringgit, right? In a year, you get 3,600, right? In 10 years, you get 36,000, right? And then in 20 years, you get 70,000, right? The amazing thing is that this is only one small little habit of saving, right? And it's the same thing with regards to our EPF also, right? EPF, even though we keep aside a very small amount for our EPF, but the whole thing of it all, if we continue saving and continue investing, right? I'm sure if you guys look at your EPF amount right now, you will see a very big amount, right? And that's the power of small habits, and that's the power of compounding interest. So today, right, if you guys want to actually take some action, and if you guys are telling yourself, despite the inflation, despite things getting expensive, I still want to get financial security. I think one of the most important thing, right, is just to start a very small habit. And this very small habit is to do an auto deduct from your account, or just put a small little tabung. Every time before you leave the house, you put some money, put some money, put some money. And as I mentioned to you, the analogy over here is like EPF. I'm sure if some of you are looking, if you have been working for 10 years or 20 years, when you look at your EPF money, every month, you don't feel that money just deducting from your account. The thing is, we are used to it already, right? And say, okay lah, it's already deducted, right? We can't do anything, right? But if we were to look at our EPF right now, the amount that we saved, right? And that's the power of saving and also compounding interest, right? And if we were to look at it, I'm sure you guys will be pleasantly surprised at the amount being saved right now, right? So it's the same thing with regards to your auto debit, right? After you have auto debited your money, right? The next thing that you can do is to start investing, right? And if you are wondering what to invest in, I think I've mentioned this time and time again now. One of my favorite assets is stocks, right? And always remember, if you want to invest in stocks, always remember that a stock is basically a share. And when you buy a share in a company, you are a shareholder, right? And when you are part owner of the company, right, you always have to remember that you want to invest in a company that will be doing well, that is growing, right? And I think one of my latest episode, I mentioned a little bit about this company called Pekat, where you can see that, and I showed my portfolio that I actually entered at about 42 cents, and right now it's about 80-ish cents. So the gain is not bad. The gains are not bad, right? So I think long story short, right, always remember this. When you want to invest, always remember that you are part of a business, or you are part of a business owner, or you own a small chunk of that business. And the whole thing of it all, and why I invested in Pekat was, I could see that the country is heading more and more towards the renewable energy sector. And as the country moves towards the renewable energy sector, the demand for these products will increase. And therefore, this is one of the companies that will benefit from this particular events, right? So, hello Alex, how are you? So I'm going to open it up for any questions. If you guys have any questions, I can see Petro Trading. I know we've been in touch, right? And once you get back, just tell me, give me a call, right? And Alex, do you guys have any questions before I end? I'm going to drink some water first. Just give me 1 second. So as I mentioned, right, today I actually was talking to some students, and one of their main concerns is, if diesel prices are going up, how are they going to save, right? Right now it's already very hard to save, right? And my advice is very simple, right? You start very small, start very simple. If we cannot save, okay, there's this rule that says 50% of our, there's this 50, 30, 20, right? So 50% would be used for our needs, 30% are for our wants, and 20% are for our savings, right? And one of the reasons why I don't like this 50-30-20 is I feel that 20% of our total salary just doesn't make sense lah, basically, right? If we are fresh grad in KL, we're making about 3,000 lah, assuming lah, right? And 3,000 is quite a high salary lah, right? So assuming if we take 50%, right, of 3,000, that'll be 1,005, right? Imagine 1,005 for our living expenses, for expenses going back and forth the office, and our eating expenses, right? I feel 1,005 is a bit is a bit too little lah, I feel like, right? So that's one of the reasons why I don't quite like the 50-30-20, right? So what I and another thing is, like, if the 20% is very unattainable for us to save, right, on a monthly basis, we just give up. Like, alamak, we cannot save 20%, so therefore why even try, right? My whole thing is better start. Okay, I always believe start steady, start small, right? But just start, right? So that's one of the reasons why I said, have a small tabung, right? And just put 10 ringgit, right? Every time before you leave the house. That was what I used to do, right? Mine was more modern lah, basically. I actually had an auto debit or auto deduct. So every time when the month comes, right, I deduct it for certain things, right? So every month, auto deduct, auto deduct, auto deduct, just like our EPF. Remember this analogy, right? If you're thinking after maybe 4 or 5 months of saving your money, it doesn't add up like, alamak, it doesn't look like much. Just remember what we have done, for our EPF. Every time when we save and when we invest, right? Eventually, 1 year doesn't seem much. 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. After 10 years, you really see the results. After 20 years, you'll be amazed. After 30 years, it'll be a big amount, right? So it's all about small habits and compounding interest, right? At the end of the day. So with that, guys, I don't see that many questions. Guys, in the future, if you guys have any questions, please put it down in the comment section. Today's episode is more like, what we're going to do if the diesel prices goes up, right? And there is also rumors that maybe the petrol prices may be next. And I'm seeing some news about even the Ministry of Healthcare, Ministry of Health. They're looking towards doing a rationalization over there. So I don't know what that means, but I hope that, not everything goes up lah, So with that, guys, take care, and I hope to see you guys very, very soon, right? Take care, guys. Good night. See you soon. Bye.